What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Built Different podcast with Tucker Speed. This episode, I was joined by a super rad dude. We had a great conversation. Austin, some of you might know him as Shooksoda on Instagram. I found out what the name means, and it's pretty interesting. And we also talked about his FXR project and building an entire FXR out of made in the USA only parts. And I really found out, I didn't realize how deep into that project he really was. And it's a cool story, and it has a lot of parallels with a lot of other things in life and our country and things going on in the world right now. And he's just a super humble, super honest, and a really cool dude. And I'm stoked that he joined us. I was also joined by J.O. as a co-host. It was a great episode. I hope you guys enjoy it. Remember, this podcast is brought to you by TuckerSpeed.com, your one-stop shop for all things performance-related for your Harley-Davidson motorcycles. And before we get started, give us a follow and a 5-star review. I hope you enjoy the episode. Give it a listen.
Making power by day, making friends at night. Built different, Tucker Speed. Hell yeah, brother.
We're rolling. All right, we are joined by Austin,
How's it going?
otherwise known as Shooksoda.
That's what people call me, Shooks. I'm like,
Where did that name come from?
man.
I'm interested what it means. You know, like, what does it mean? It's such a...
So I've been asked this question so many times, and I think I've given a different answer every time just because it's fun, because it really is nonsensical. Like, there is no real defined answer to it.
Didn't come from something...
I think, well, originally when Instagram first came out, like, I tried to get, like, Austin as my handle, but of course,
obviously,
a name is going to be insanely difficult to get. But I was always like a prankster growing up, and so like I would shake up sodas and put them in the fridge, and like mom would open them and they'd explode, and I always would get a kick out of it. Yeah, and so for me, I think that's kind of what was like popped in my head. I was like, well, I can't have Austin. What's something funny that I could do? And then I ended up with Shooksoda. So now when everybody asks, I just send them the clip where, have you ever seen the episode of The Simpsons where Bart like puts the Homer's beer in like a paint mixer and it like goes nuclear?
No, I haven't seen it.
So yeah, I'll send you the clip afterwards. But that's like whatever I send to people now as far as like where I got the name from.
Is.
Yeah.
It's just literally a Shooksoda.
Just a shook up soda, that's it.
So no deep meaning. I thought maybe we were going to, you know.
No, I mean, no, not really.
Nothing.
It's just funny. Yeah.
Just a prankster. That's cool. And it's not like, I was also like, you know, like you're a motorcycle enthusiast, and I was like, what's the connection to his name? Like, what does that mean in the motorcycle world? Like, I could just never really figure out like what it is. Like,
there really isn't one.
It's not.
Nope.
And that's good. It doesn't need to be, right?
No, and I find that to be almost an advantage because it sticks out, you know, like
for sure.
I give buddies all the hard time when they have like whatever model bike they have in their username. Like I just poke fun at them. I don't really care. That's awesome. It's sometimes how I figure out like who you are faster, or I can find you when I'm searching to message you or something like that.
Do you have buddies that like their Instagram handle changes every time they get a new bike? Now they're no longer like Road Glide Bob, or, you know, FXR Bob.
There have been a couple, yeah, and I definitely gave them a little bit of grief for it. So just pulling their leg mostly, but I find it a little bit funny when it's in the handle. So
yeah, I think it's funny because it's, you know, it's like that current model that you own right now is your identity, but you're going to sell it next week for the next model, and now that's going to be who you are.
Well, I mean, that is a deeper question of like your identity as like who you are as a person. Is it the bike that you have your entire identity invested into, or is the bike just an extension, you know?
Yeah, right.
And so I think that's a question people might need to ask themselves.
Well, and also like, is your Instagram handle, is it deeper than that? Is it, or is it just Shooksoda? It's just kind of a random thing.
It's just Shooksoda, yep. You know, and that's why
nothing super deep or important, or
no, but it's memorable.
Yeah,
and that I think is the good thing about mine, is why I haven't had any desire to change it. I tried to get just Shook for a while, but that was taken because not a lot of people be like, "Oh, Shooksoda." It's like, "What's up, Shook?" And I'm like, "What's up?" So,
Yeah.
Or just call me Austin. If you see me out in public or something, just call me Austin. I prefer that.
Yeah, that's the other weird thing is we all know each other by our Instagram names, but we don't know our real names. Like, what's up, man? What's up, Shook?
Well,
But, if I had to actually call you by your name, like, how many people do you know them by their Instagram name, but you don't know their real name?
oh, I mean, there's a
It's
lot.
crazy.
Yeah.
You go to an event or a rally, and I see that a lot. It's like, I know that dude, and I know his Instagram handle, but I don't know his name.
And I think that's just common with just how we communicate nowadays. So.
It's just the way it's the way of the world.
It's just another name for the same person. I mean, it's strange to think that, but it really is just like when you fill out like legal forms and stuff, it says like what other names do you go by, like do you have to put your Instagram handle in like 10 years? Is that going to be required?
Yeah,
like what's
right.
your social media handles that you go by, because that's how people communicate and identify you.
Maybe.
Like that could be
It's
something.
an alias, right?
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, my legal name's not Tony, it's Anthony. Like, so I don't know. It's no different than Tucker Speed or, whatever else you want to call me.
Yeah, you make a good point, because I don't even know, now that I'm just scrolling through names on my head, like Dump Truck, I don't even know his first name. He's
Just
been
Dump Truck.
here, yeah, just Dump Truck, but yeah.
Well, and you'll ask him, like, what's your real name? And he'll just say Dump Truck. And that's, just his.
Yeah.
Yeah.
sometimes it's just easier to just go by what people are already calling you, so that way you don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
I think in his situation where he's kind of like a personality, like Dump Truck it's like Larry the Cable Guy.
Yeah.
That's not his real name, but that's his persona that he, like
All
that's
the
his
events.
public face or
Oh,
whatever.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, but no, it's weird. But yeah, maybe one day we'll have to put it on our tax forms.
You never know.
You never know.
You never know.
Yeah, they'll probably find you easier that way. I mean, they're not going to find you, with your, telephone number, your house phone. You know what I mean? You still have to put they still have a place for home phone on a lot of these forms. Like,
Yeah.
who has a home phone?
I haven't filled that in a couple decades, I think.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
There's onesies and twosies out there that still got the landlines. So.
There's a few.
Yeah, them old boys. There's a couple old boys, I bet, that we know that don't even have internet. They don't have computers.
We know a few
Yeah.
dudes like that, right, Jordan?
Yeah.
In the show, we got a couple dudes in the show that don't have email, so they can't.
Yeah.
They're like, I got to come down and pay you in cash. We're like, well, we can just email you the invoice. Well, I don't have an email.
Yeah, like that old Mark at Florida, the transmission.
Yeah, that's an old school
Yeah,
dude.
He's
Yeah.
like, don't have email.
But so let's dive into your FXR project,
All right.
because that's kind of that's your main kind of project right now, is this FXR project. So we got some bikes going on out back or out front, but I want to know, give me I want to know the long version.
Okay.
Where did the idea come about? Where did the bike come from? What made you want to travel the country and chase down, parts and, the whole story? I want to, and I want the long version.
The conversation really stretches back to the idea of quality over quantity. I feel like there's a lot of access to parts, but it doesn't mean you have access to quality parts. And so in putting together other bikes that I have in the past, like, am I putting this part on because it's the best part that I can put on, or am I putting it on because it's convenient and I can have it right now and put it on there?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like all too often in life, especially now, convenience is priority. And so when I was thinking of this project, because
Do you think? I'm just curious. Do you think it's priority, or do you think it's impatience?
both,
That we're so used to, I need it, I got it right now. I need it, I order it, and it's here tomorrow, or whatever.
Well,
More than like,
I think, because like I prioritize quality. So I've waited, 6 months, 7 months, 12 months, 13, 14 months for parts.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm okay doing that because I want the quality over the right now. I'm okay waiting for it and delaying it. I'll just find another bike and put it together faster, you know? That's how I ended up with the dirt bike Dyna, is like I was waiting for parts for this FXR. Well, I needed something else to do, so I filled my time with something that I could be impatient with. Turned out to be a whole lot of fun. We can talk about the Built Level 100.
Yeah, I want to know about that too. Yeah,
that was a blast. But for me, I think with this bike specifically, and prioritizing American-made over, like that's the project. Is the parts have to be made in America by American companies, right? So that eliminates a lot of parts. And then you start to ask, like, okay, am I putting on a part because it's just the only American option, or do I put on, you know, something else because it's the better product, right? So like putting on Brembo brakes onto this FXR would have been awesome. You know, Brembo Master, like the best.
It's definitely quality stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's not American.
But it's not American made. And so the further you dive into that, like it's just a nightmare. But to go back to the beginning, like I got the FXR from Caleb, the guy's coming out to do the Twobit. So I picked it up from him. Oh man, it was probably about a year before we even started this project, and I was still, you know.
What are you about a year into it? Are you?
Yeah, I'm just about a year in.
Okay.
So a year living in the box truck. So
That's crazy.
That was wild, but. Yeah, I started just kind of going into it with this idea that I wanted to put together an FXR, and that's what I was going to do. And then time kept passing, and I was working a job that, you know, wasn't fulfilling me deeper than just paying the bills and keeping the lights on. And I didn't feel anything really.
What were you doing?
So I was a technology consultant for Deloitte & Touche. So I was just doing
just
techie stuff.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah, I wasn't doing the actual programming. I'd task the other guys out to do that kind of stuff, but I was more of the talker. I'd help with meetings, and I was more of a personality hire, I think, than anything, which is kind of funny. So yeah, I was good at telling stories.
So with the American-made thing, were you set out to prove or disprove anything, like prove that it can be done, or maybe shine light on maybe the lack of American-made products? Like, what was your thinking?
Yeah, with choosing to do an all-American bike, I had so many people laughing at me at first when I was saying, like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and I'm going to build an all-American bike. All of the parts that go into this are going to be from America. And people are like, that's impossible. You can't do it. I'm like, you just can't do it anymore. And I'm like, I think I can. I was like, it's going to cost me 17 times more than it would to not do it this way. But I mean, the level of depth that you're diving into when you do that is just like, I'm looking at import records, I'm looking at component sheets, I'm looking at absolutely everything.
So you're doing the research. You know, you're not just like finding a part on a website and it says made in the USA.
There's a reason why I take hand delivery.
You're going deeper than that.
There's a reason why I do hand delivery, is because I want to show up and I want to see you actually making these parts that you say that you make.
Okay. Wow.
And there has been places that I've shown up to and they say they're American, but they're not.
It's packaged or assembled in the U.S. or whatever it might be.
It's easy to slap a sticker on something.
Sure. Interesting. And that's funny. You know, the value. What do you think the value is in, you know, say a company building a product, you know, say they build, you know, they buy a part from China, they buy a part from Taiwan, they buy this from Mexico or wherever it comes from, they bring it together, they assemble this part here in the USA, they box it up here in the USA, they slap a made in the USA. Like, what's the value of that made in the USA sticker to you? Or what do you think it is in general?
I think, to me, more so than most, is super important. But I think the integrity, like if I'm being, with this project, my integrity should not be in question because of the level of research I'm doing into each and every part that I'm going into. Like I can tell you, like a 91 FLH casting like the inner primary, is made in America. And it was cast in, I think, North Carolina. You know, I can go into how a master cylinder for dual disc twin cam was cast in Illinois, you know, except for the top cover. That's imported from Taiwan. Like, I can go down this rabbit hole of where every single part is from.
That was one of my questions I was going to ask you. Like, if you had taken your bike and all the parts and, you know, found out where, because not everything on that Harley is made in America. And so that's what you've done then? You've gone through every
single part.
Dude, that is
That's crazy.
Down,
That is, man.
down to like main. So
Yeah.
like there are some Timken bearings that are still made in the United States. Not all of them are.
right.
Like to go even to that point of like the main drive bearing and inner primary bearing, I had them custom made by a shop in Texas to put into this engine because both of those bearings were made in Germany.
God, that's so much deeper than I thought it was,
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah, it's not just it says made in America on their website, I'm just going to buy it. No,
Yeah.
it's,
Well, and
where
even
do
the
bolts
level
come?
of, yeah, like the hardware and the bearings, like, you know, I guess maybe I didn't realize that you're literally like every piece down to the master cylinder cap.
everything.
Wow. That's,
Like brake pads, spark plugs, everything. Now,
Yeah.
the only thing that, and I had, you know, crowdsourced kind of an answer as far as like what people thought or what people would think if I did consumables. So we're talking oil, fuel, spark plugs, brake pads, tires, specifically tires. I spent a week searching and scouring for any kind of information as far as American-made tires. Now, the options for specifically the size that I want, so I needed an 18-130 for my rear. There's not an American-made 18-130. Now, the closest you can get for an American-made tire that will fit a Harley comes from Dunlop. Dunlop is 75% owned by a Japanese company and 25% owned by a UK company.
Wow.
The
and produced where?
Ohio,
so the
right.
American Elite is produced in New York,
Okay, so it's produced here, but not.
but where does the rubber come from?
Oh, he's good.
I mean, you're asking the wrong guy.
You
I
know,
don't
like
know.
where does the rubber come from for that? You know, it's not being produced here.
So it's
the
shipped in.
the only thing that's American about the American Elite is the name and the guy that's pressing the button to push the mold.
Interesting. But it says made in the USA, right?
That's what
Yeah.
it does.
I mean, it's in the name,
And it
right?
is. It is made here, technically, you know.
But
But I mean, I'm talking like I'll show up to a shop, like a machine shop that's making me parts, and I'm looking at the machines that they're using. Are you using a Haas? No, you're not using a Haas. Okay, what kind of? Where are you getting your blanks from? Where are your aluminum? Where are you getting your aluminum from that you're making these parts out of? You know, like. I mean, you can go really, 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 really deep to the point of insanity, which I have a couple times, and I just had to like take a step back and breathe. But I mean, like consumables was something that I crowdsourced. I was like, what are your guys' thoughts on this? Because I might be traveling, you know, once this bike's finished being put together and I'm doing my 20,000 mile journey that I have set out to do afterwards, is I might be in the middle of nowhere, Alabama or Maine or something, and I don't have access to those consumables being made in America.
Or what about even some of the specific parts that were, say you have a part failure, say a bearing failure, that's not sitting on the shelf at maybe the local Harley dealership or an independent shop. Then what?
Then I really got to figure it out. So
But the consumables, I mean, with tires and I was going to ask you, like, what parts have you not been able to find? Besides, like, obviously, it sounds like tires in a way. Like, if you go that deep.
yeah, so tires has been one of the biggest ones. A lot of brakes. There are still a couple companies out there that are still doing brakes here. Brake pads is another one that's hard to find. Castings, almost just about everything that's casted is imported. But it's, oh man, I mean, I could go get a notebook of just the hundreds of parts that I can't use.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean,
and
I'm not surprised.
I'm
you
keeping,
know-
I'm keeping a really good documentation of
Really?
like what's going on to this bike. Like I'll be totally honest and 100% open about every single part that's on this bike when it's done. It's like, you want to go replicate this? Here you go. It cost me $100,000.
Wow.
Go nuts.
Wow.
That's what you're going to be into it?
Yeah,
Probably
if we
about-
if we include the cost of the truck, the gas to
kidding.
get there, yeah. We're talking like a ramen noodle diet. Like we're talking like bare minimum when it comes to food, like just focused on a bike, kind of traveling nonstop to get stuff. Yeah.
Because there's more than just the cost of the bearing. It's like, what did it cost you to find that bearing,
And then-
go get that bearing,
And then put it into something that was made in America.
all of that. So it's not,
You're driving to
Yeah.
get these parts.
Hand delivery. So that way I can verify the fact that it is actually made here in the United States. Because it's hard to hide that you like.
Yeah.
I have walked into places before and been like, "You guys sure do crank out a lot of parts for not having a lot of machines." And
Yeah.
it goes real quiet. And they stop replying to my emails and they hang up on me on the phone.
that was kind of leads into my next question. Like, have you had any brands or companies upset with you because you're kind of calling them out?
100%. I have had quite a few people tell me to get stuffed. Like
I could see that, if a company's saying that this is a made in the USA part, and you're like, I don't think so.
import records are public knowledge for the most part. You can find import records on just about any United States company if they've had anything go through a port. So you can find the information. So I'll be on the phone with people asking specific questions about a made in America part that I can see the imports records from them bringing
Bring it
2,000 of
in,
them in 3 months ago. So like, your integrity is now in question. So now you just lied to me.
Have you had any problems, kind of ruffling feathers? Like, does it bother you, or?
No, I mean, I would rather have a conversation with somebody and then feel a little bit guilty afterwards that they just lied, and maybe hopefully change what their website says or change their practices. If you assembled it in America, put that on a box. I would much rather you be honest than lie about it being made in America and it not being true. If you got the parts from here and there and there and there and put it together here, your hands put it together, awesome. Say that. Don't be dishonest and misleading. And that's
that's
the
fair.
only request I make.
I thought they had to do that. I honestly thought that the companies had to say that, hey, if they got parts or materials from the outside, that it wasn't truly, sourced from here, assembled here,
See,
in America. That's what I thought they had to do.
So it's to a certain degree. You can have like a certain percentage when that's still something you can place onto it before it's misleading or misguiding.
Gotcha.
So it's
It's probably also, somewhat hard to police. I mean, obviously anybody can go and find those records and prove that, that maybe made in the USA is not true, but that would take a huge undertaking for someone to police all of that in every product across the United States.
nobody's willing to do that.
Right.
I've barely even scratched the surface on the
Sure.
motorcycle industry.
Right.
And specifically of motorcycles, just Harleys. And now there have been some people, that tell me to fuck off on the phone. And that's fine. That's totally cool. I get that. That's fine. I'm not going to use your product. You'll go on my shit list and I just won't work with you. That's
Right.
fine. There's other ones that I want to work with in the future, so I try and still keep those relationships good. It's like, I'm not going to do every single project from here on out all American. That's insane. I want to still be able to use some of the products that are out there that make a lot more sense. I can't use an M unit for this FXR, which is like the holy grail when it comes to wiring up an FXR.
Sure.
Is I can't use one. Do I want to use one on the next one? Oh, Lord, I'm going to use one. Yeah.
What are you using for electronics?
So with the
Can you use the factory or no?
I pulled the whole harness just because it was a rat's nest to begin with, and I figured if I started from scratch, I would be able to do, I would have control over how that became, the harness for it. Luckily, I'm going to go see the guys over at ThunderMax. They have the Thunder Heart, which I'm going to partially use, and then the rest of it's just going to be good old chopper wiring and just roughing it. And it'll work, but it's not going to be the prettiest, but it'll work. And I'm not building a show bike here, and that's something that I've been pretty open about. I don't really like entering my bikes into shows. If I'm asked to come out and display a bike, I'll do it, but I'm not going out of my way to display a bike for my own.
You're not going out to try and seek out a trophy or a
Man, if I do, it would. The only one I would ever think about doing is a Triple Crown. And that would be the only thing.
That's not really a. I don't know.
I don't even want to
show.
I don't even want. Yeah, I just want to do the ride. I want to do the ride more than anything.
Sure.
In like the FXR tour, I just want to go on the ride. I'm not entering the show. You know, like I would get to Born Free, Texas, I'm not entering the bike, you know? So for me, I need a bike that works to prove the concept is real, to bring the conversation to the forefront of really asking like the integrity of what people are saying, you know? And I feel like now more than ever where people are deceived way too often. I think that's the importance of your word, is that when you say something, you can back it up and mean it.
Sure.
You know, and so people keep saying that like, oh, what about this? What about that? What about this? And it's like, you're right. Yeah, it is harder to do this way. It's insanely hard to do this way, but it's worth it. And my integrity on the project can't be questioned because I've gone to the levels of research that I have to prove that every single thing that is on this bike is made in America. So that's, I have zero expectation for other people to have the same level of integrity as I do. I'm not asking that from everyone. I'm just asking for a little honesty.
Sure.
If it says made in America, mean it. If it's assembled in America, mean it. If you just rebox it, just don't put anything. That'll probably save you some headaches, you know?
Right.
And that's just the honesty behind it. It's just, I want to know what I'm getting is quality. And if you're selling me crap in a different box, I'm not going to be happy. And that's, I don't want to support something that I know is, if they're lying about where their product comes from, what else are they lying about? And those are people I just don't want to do business with.
What, man, that's such a deep, I mean.
It's more than just building an FXR.
It is, yeah. Yeah, it has, you know, some social aspects to it, you know, where we are as a country. You know what I mean?
That's a
like,
big one.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'd just be curious, like, you know, how do we ever get back to a point where, you know, made in the USA, you know, doesn't mean what it means today because not everything comes from overseas. Like, I mean, how do we get the manufacturing back here in the United States? How do we?
I think it starts with transparency. I think it starts with the honesty and the integrity of a company. You know, when people say made in America, it should mean that it's made here, you know? And I think a lot, like me bringing that question to the forefront with a lot of these companies, and I've had hundreds of people reach out to me and be like, you got me thinking about this a little bit differently. What is it really, what are these guys really saying their stuff is, you know? And I think that's been a good question to ask in this industry right now is, you know, getting people's integrity in line, I think is the first step to have honest people building stuff here so they can take pride in craftsmanship. I think that's huge. And I think it is asking the questions right now, like, is this really made here? And for, you know, the shit list people that I have, it's like, I can undeniably prove that it's not. Now, I'm not just going to go drop in everybody's names on that because that's not fair to them. I have an MBA. I understand business. I understand importing to save costs and this and this and that. Totally understand that. If I was to build something, if I was to build a part and I got this little bit of it from, let's say, China or wherever, and the rest of it I made myself, I'm going to tell you that this is cast here, or this is made here, or milled here, and we import the plungers for, you know, let's say it's a brake, right? So we're doing a master cylinder. The plunger I import, but the actual castings are done here, you know? And I would just be transparent and honest about it. Like, not everybody's going to go into business trying to beat you just because you're bringing a product to market, right? So, like, I understand, like, you're going to build something, right? So you're going to build a product and show everybody how you make it. You're going to show them, like, step by step. There's a couple of guys out there that are doing this right now. Is this like, they'll show you step by step their process of building something, and they're still going to sell them because people aren't going to go through all the work to build it themselves or have access to those kind of machines to build it themselves. So they're still going to buy that product. But now I have faith in the transparency of that person because they just showed me what they're actually making and how they're making it. So I'm more likely to buy from them because I believe them now when they say made in America. And I think that's a big thing right now for a lot of manufacturers is like they're lacking transparency, which makes me question their integrity. And if I'm questioning their integrity, I'll go somewhere else to spend my money, especially in the current economic hardship that we're going through in this country. If I'm going to spend money, and I've spent a lot of money on this bike, I want my money to go to the right people that are doing honest, work and doing it right and being truthful. So
let me throw this at you, and
Yeah.
and this is not a dig on you at all.
No.
I don't want you to take it that way, but as a company building a product, and say they bring in, you know, a material from here and a material from there, and they say they cast it or mold it or whatever it is they're doing here, and they slap a made in the USA, and say they sell 1 million of them this year. You're the one out of the million that's questioning or is digging deep enough to realize that it's not 100% made in the USA, that this material came from China, this material came from Taiwan, it was assembled here, it was poured here, it was molded here, whatever it is. Like, as a company, how do you make your voice? I mean, I'll just be blunt. That company doesn't give a shit about one guy.
no, they don't.
You know what I mean? The masses don't care. It says made in the USA, and that's all it means. That's all that matters for.
Which is why I begged the question, what does made in America really mean? And I think that's what part of this project is like, I'll back it up with the research. This is what it really means to be made here.
So, is this project just that, trying to, because if this project is nothing more than you calling the company and saying, I call bullshit, your product's not made in the USA, and the only thing that comes out of it is a phone call, no harm, no foul to that company. They don't care.
No.
Don't buy our products. You don't affect our bottom line. But is this project to make your voice bigger than one person?
I think
is it that?
I think it is, and I think it comes back to the idea of like where we are as a society, and do we want the instant gratification, or are we willing to wait a minute because they got a 6 to 8 week lead time for a part, but it's going to be quality. And I think we as a society would rather have the right now, and I think changing as a society is a part of that, is asking the bigger questions like what does this mean? If I can just slap a sticker on anything and say whatever I want, or I can be whatever I want, which is true to an extent. You can go be whoever you want to be.
Right.
Tony,
call yourself whatever you want to call yourself.
Exactly. Like if you want to be whatever you want to be, awesome. But when it comes to your product, like what are you putting out there? And is it something that, because when I think of a brand, right, in marketing aspects of things, it's like there's some products that aren't the best at what they are, but you get behind it because you like the brand, you like the story, you like what it supports. Why do we wear the t-shirts that we wear? It's because it has a certain message on it, or it means a certain thing to us, and it's a pride and ownership kind of thing. And I don't think there's a lot of pride and ownership if you are looking at something and you're like, man, that's always breaking, like this and that. Like, yeah, I have one, it's cool, but it never works. And I feel like when you take the time to find out what's quality and what's not, you not only in motorcycle parts, but in the people you surround yourself with, the decisions you make in your life, like it comes back to like a philosophy thing of just like, it's bigger than a bike. And yeah, those companies that tell me to fuck off, that's fine. I'll just keep moving. Like it doesn't bug me one bit. It doesn't.
Right.
It's not going. I don't believe it's a setback at all. I get set right and find something else.
Well, there's I don't know if there's anything out there that's your only option, right? Like,
There's a couple.
Is there?
There's a couple. Yeah.
Have you been burned in that way, or not burned, but just kind of run into a dead end?
Yeah, for the longest, the issue was motors.
Really? Like motors in what sense? Like, because motor is a general term. Are we talking like pistons, rods, flywheels, all of it?
All of it.
Okay.
Like you could sit here and piece one together slowly, and then get to one thing and it's just like, nope, that's not made here. And you're like, okay, now I got to search for another one. So putting the drivetrain alone took me almost 6 months of research to put together. So, and contact the company out in Texas that was making the bearings and everything else.
What year's the FXR again?
It's a 87 FXR.
87, so it's earlier. How much of that motorcycle specifically in its stock form would you say was made in America?
There's actually quite a bit.
Really?
Yeah, it was the smaller components and things like that, but I wanted to start with a frame and see what I could do with just a frame. You know, there are stock parts that are going back onto it.
Let me ask you this, because
Yeah.
I don't know for sure. I don't know myself. The frame itself,
It's made in Wisconsin.
it's built in Wisconsin. Materials?
The records for that, I have not been able to find
Really?
where the materials are coming from. But I mean, that goes back to the same question: is like, where's the rubber coming from for your tires?
Yeah, right.
It's like there are some companies out there that take pride in ownership and take pride in craftsmanship, and do have like all of the records for that. Like they do have a American aluminum supplier. They do have a steel supplier, you know, and like those are things that they take pride in their craftsmanship. And so when they say made in America, they mean it. And I think it'll be a real testament to the bike is what products you see on it are companies that are still doing exactly what they say they're doing.
I mean, like, so with the tires, I'm just curious. Do you view that tire as a made in the USA product?
Which
Like,
one?
what's your view? Like that American Elite, that 130/18.
You know,
Is it in your eyes? Do you view it as a made in the USA, or do you put it in another category, like a molded in the USA? Like, how do you personally, through what you know and your research, where do you place that tire?
you know, in the world that we live in today, it is hard to find 100% American anything. And
We're even the smallest part of it.
what mine did they mine this out of? You know, like where did the ore come from? You know,
Sure.
and like that's the level where I said you can go down the rabbit hole and become quite crazy quickly because
Sure.
you're going that far into it. It's not worth doing that. You know, there is a certain line where it has to be drawn. Is this like, is an American company here in America employing Americans building this part? Circle yes, circle no. All right, that's a good starting point.
That's your kind of starting point there.
Yeah. And then, of course, I can dive further into like, okay, well, where's this? But
Sure.
is that tire made in America? Technically. Is the components to it made in America? Maybe not. Is the machine for it made in America? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I didn't go up to the New York plant and tour it because I was already out with it because size-wise it wasn't going to match. So I had to find an alternative. So I ended up going with a Shinko. It's a Korean tire. So, but it fits the bill for what I needed.
And-
now, eventually, maybe I already had one kid reach out to me and he was just like, how much does it take to start a tire company? I want to start making American tires, you know? And maybe that's an awesome thing is because maybe this project, you know, goes on to inspire future machinists or future, you know, tire makers
Industrialists.
that change the way that we look at American made or try and bring things back to have a pride in the country, you know?
Wouldn't that be something to look back on in you know, say 20, 30 years? All of a sudden there's this American tire company that was a spawn of this project.
It'd be beautiful.
I
Why
mean,
not?
wouldn't that be, yeah, I mean, that'd be badass.
It'd be awesome. I would buy their tires forever.
For real, yeah, you know, like, but yeah, so I mean, that level of inspiration is really cool. Have you had a lot of that?
I've had hate and people being, you're great, you know?
Hate? Really?
Oh, yeah, easily.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, from not just the companies that are, from even just like the general public.
Yeah, I mean, you can't be doing anything on a large scale like this, which is, it's just me in a box truck traveling around. Like, it's not a large scale, but the message, I think, is bigger than... You asked a while ago, like, where did this all come from? And originally, it was just I was going to do the van life in a box truck and build an FXR, and the All-American thing just kind of came to me one night when I was sitting there just hanging out with some buddies, and you know, I got my American flag out front of the house and I'm just like, I wonder if I could make it all American. And they were like, you're crazy, you can never do it. And then I started looking and searching and figuring out like, maybe this is possible. It's gonna be hard, but it's possible. And so yeah, I think the message is when you're trying to spread a message kind of like how I am, and I'm not really pointing any one message, it's just, you know, integrity is important. Know what it is that you're choosing to invest in, I think, is another thing. I'm more of a rider than I am a builder. People keep saying that, like, I'm a builder. I don't believe myself to be a bike builder at all. I don't think I have the credentials for it. There's a guy called Alex Ramosi, and he talks about like imposter syndrome or something like that. And like, I don't feel imposter syndrome at all because I don't consider myself a builder, but he talks about like having a stack of undeniable proof of like who the fuck you are. And so I haven't built enough bikes or put enough bikes together yet to consider myself a builder. So I don't give myself that title,
I think it's a weird title. Builder is a weird title in this industry.
Well, check out my build, or it's lost its meaning, and I think there's a lot of words that lose its meaning, because before I'm even a bike assembler or a motorcycle enthusiast or anything like that, I've always been a rider.
Really?
And I think it's really important that like people focus on what I'm actually writing about, because that is more of the messages I'm trying to get across and just in general than where is my parts made,
Yeah. I lost my train of thought. I was going to ask you a question. I just slipped my mind. But, I just think it's, I don't know, man. It can be so deep, but so simple at the same time. You know what I mean?
Most of the big questions are.
Yeah.
Like, what's the meaning of light, Tony?
If I knew, man, I would share it right here on this podcast.
It's 42.
I have no idea.
It's 42.
What is that? What's 42?
Whatever you want it to be. That's the meaning of life. It's whatever you want it to be. It's the simplest answer for the biggest questions.
I mean, I question life a lot. I think, me and Jay have had a lot of late night conversations in here. Like, we might have a bad day in the shop, and we wonder why are we doing, we're stressed out, we're behind deadlines, we have a bike that's not working, or whatever it is, and it's like, we're here burning the midnight oil for a customer's bike who probably doesn't appreciate what we're doing. It's like, why am I doing this? Why am I not home with my wife and kids? Why do I do this? What does this moment, what does this motorcycle mean when I'm on my deathbed? Like, all these questions. What does it mean? I haven't found it.
You will ask yourself a million questions,
I haven't found it yet, man. I wish I knew. There's days where I feel like I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, and the universe works in weird ways, and I am contributing. I'm putting back out there, exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, and I feel like I'm right where I'm supposed to be. And then there's days where I'm just like, I don't know what any of this means. You know what I mean?
No, I totally understand that, man. I mean, like, I've experienced the highs and lows just being on this trip in the box truck, man.
Really?
I'm like, I've been in some really, really rough spots with it. Most recent one was broke down in Tennessee. Broke down in Tennessee in the middle of January or February. I think it was February. I don't know. I don't even know what day it is today, to be honest. It all just kind of blends together. But I broke down there, and like, I'm in the middle of nowhere, Tennessee. Like, I was 200 miles to Nashville, or like something like that. Didn't matter how I cut it. I was smack dab between Memphis and Nashville, and there was nothing around to help. Like, even when I got towed to the mechanic after 3 days of trying to get a hold of a mechanic that was open and willing to take in the truck and that could work on the truck, they were 3 hours away in the complete opposite direction of both of those places. It was gnarly. I fought off crackheads in the middle of the night, like freezing temperatures. I didn't have any power because it was overcast and my solar went out. There's a lot of sitting there thinking like, what the fuck does this all mean?
Like, what are you doing?
Why am I here? Why am I doing this? And I have an honest belief in that we are exactly where we are supposed to be in this exact moment in time. And we might not ever get the answers to the question of why, but we're there right then. So make the most of it. Enjoy when we can, smile when we can, laugh when we can, help others when we can. even when it fucking sucks, because I didn't have any power. So like, I didn't even have a heater going, nothing. I was sitting in the truck just praying for most of that. It's just, you know, I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Like, because I don't pray for things. I'm a little bit different when I talk to God, universe, you know, the all father, whatever you want to call him, right? Is like, I don't ask for anything anymore. When I switched my train of thought to just practicing gratitude, changed my entire outlook on life. I'm fine being wherever I'm at, whenever I'm there, and I'm happy for the opportunity to just exist in this exact moment.
I think I'm a lot like that naturally, but I think when I get in those moments, the part that's hard for me to just appreciate, like, being in that moment, stuck in the middle of nowhere, freezing cold, whatever it might be, is my kids. You know what I mean? You don't have kids, right?
I don't have kids. I'm not married. So like that's something in life I haven't yet experienced.
Yeah, and I think that's the, you know, because I'm all for like road tripping, like grinding all night, like just embracing kind of the suck of some of these adventures and, you know, whatever, like, and just enjoying the opportunity to be wherever I'm at, whether it's stuck in Nebraska in a snowstorm, you know what I mean, with Jordan. Like, I could get in the mindset of just being, you know what, like, I'm here because I just had the opportunity to go to Daytona and we're stuck here, like, it's all good, like, I'm cool. But it's the being away from my kids that always comes back and makes me feel like, why am I doing this? And allowing it to like take me away from my kids. And that's been the hard part for me. Like, not saying that that it sucks any more for me than you. Because I'm sure that, you know, you've had some solo, you know, you're doing this all solo, which also brings on, I think, a lot of, you know, you don't have anybody to just talk to or just, you know.
I've said it before. There's a lot of times where I look to the passenger seat and see no one. And for that moment of like validation that I need from somebody else to be like, look at this beautiful moment. Yeah. And there's no one there to share it with you.
It's got to be tough.
I mean, it's made me really rethink a lot of like my priorities in life. And I honestly think like life is way better when you get to share it with others.
I agree.
When you're just out there doing it solo dolo forever, maybe you're happy. And, you know, that's just how you want to be about life, and awesome. I've personally found that I want to share it with others.
I agree.
Whether that's a partner, whether that's, you know, eventually I have my own kids, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
Do I think it's easier for me to set off on a journey that I've been on since I don't have kids or a wife or anybody to tell me no?
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Sure.
I'm not naive to that fact. And I think if I did have kids, it would be different. I'd be doing it in a school bus instead of a box truck.
And more power to you.
So,
you know what I mean?
And that's just, it wasn't a matter of if this project was going to happen, it was when. And so if the equation changed and there was somebody else included in it, whether that was children, spouse, something like that, then yeah, I would have adapted it, and they would have either had to been real cool and see the bigger picture of it all of what I'm not thinking of just like, oh, this last year was tough, or, oh man, it took me a year to build this FXR. It's like, I'm thinking the next decade of what I'm going to do. And I think having somebody else to see and match that trajectory that I'm putting myself on, I haven't found it yet, I don't think. And so I haven't had that opportunity yet to, you know, become a dad. And I'm excited for that opportunity when that time comes.
If it comes.
If it ever does.
If it comes. I mean, that's just it. I mean, if the universe works the way we kind of think it does, it'll happen if it happens.
If
it doesn't, it doesn't. Right?
Yeah. If it's supposed to be, it'll be.
You were supposed to have an oops baby.
Yeah, I get maybe.
You know, the universe.
That's probably one way to look at it. I've been looking at it the wrong way.
But you did ask like how I deal with like haters and inspiration and stuff like that. I think this project has inspired way more people than it has anything else. And most of the haters are just like, oh, you can't do it. You'll never get it done. And if anything, that just makes me want to do it more. And not to like be like, oh, I'm better than you. I did this. It's just like, I just want to do it because this is what I said I was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And you telling me I can't do it just makes me want to prove it to myself more than I want to prove it to anybody else.
Yeah.
I'm not doing this to be like, hey, look at me, I'm better than you. That's not even remotely close to it. It's, what can I get done in this lifetime? And how cool can I do things that, like, how can I do things that I find cool? You know, you don't have to like my bike. I got the dirt bike Dyna sitting out front. You could absolutely hate that bike. And some people did. They're like, why would you ever do that to an FXD? You know, all this stuff. It's like, I don't care. I think it's cool.
Yeah.
I like it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there's a Rick Rubin quote out there, and he talks about it. And he's just like, when you're making art, you know, you don't have to worry about what other people are going to think. You just have to like it.
It's your version.
And motorcycles and artwork are one and the same. You guys got a show about this, I'm pretty sure.
Dude, I was up early this morning because, you know, we're sitting here tonight, 2 days before our Motoshow, Motorcycles and Art. And I was up early this morning. I couldn't sleep, and I was writing. And I was writing about the show and writing about how motorcycles and art are not two different things. You know what I mean? Motorcycles are art. You know, you're one of the invited motorcycles, as we're calling them. We're not calling them builders because not everybody that's invited is a builder. It's an invited motorcycle, and each of those invited bikes are selected for whatever, you know, reason it might be. Their unique, you know, take on, you know, what a motorcycle is. It's unique attributes, you know, whether it be crazy paint or a crazy build or maybe a rare motor or whatever it is. But you assemble your motorcycle how you want to do it, how you assemble it. It's a mechanical art form. And you get to build, assemble, whatever you want to call it. You get to put all these pieces together into a working machine, and you get to do it how you want it. You know, whether it's I'm going to use all American-made products, or I'm going to build a Dyna that I'm going to go race in the desert, or whatever it is. It's your interpretation, and therefore it is art, right? And yeah, I could look at your Dyna and be like, that thing's ugly and it sucks. But I could also look at the Mona Lisa and say the same thing, right?
Yep, exactly.
Like, she's not an attractive woman. Why would you want to paint her? But it's the Mona Lisa. And it's, you know what I mean? Like, so it is art. Art is just that, and it's very subjective. We found that out in this show. We were sitting down to select all the photo winners. None of us agreed on what we thought was a good-looking photo.
Well, art's open to interpretation.
It is 100%. So how do you select? It's hard to select a winner in an art contest because I mean, it's hard to. You can't judge art, right?
Unless you're going down to like the textbook style, like breakdown of things. Like, does this have perfect thirds? Does this have this?
Right.
Does it have that? Like, other than that, it's just a vote. It's the fan favorite. Which one feels like it tells you the best story or invokes the most emotion, or something like that? It's just like, that's when it comes down to art, especially voting on like a photo.
A photo for
that's
me,
hard.
like Jordan, he's a photographer, so he looks at them different than I do. When I look at a photo, I judge it purely on, when I look at that photo, like within the first 5 seconds, does it take me somewhere? Do I picture myself, you know, riding through downtown? Like, is it a photo of a bike, you know, blasting through downtown and this, you know, skyscrapers or whatever? Like, do I feel like I'm in it? Does it take me there? Like, does it strike an emotion with me, or whatever it is? Like, if I look at a photo and like there's just really no emotion, like, it just doesn't do anything for me. Whether it's technically good or not. Maybe it's taken in the wrong light. Maybe it's taken, you know, maybe it's blurry. Maybe it's grainy. Maybe it's whatever.
Or you just don't relate to it.
Maybe I just don't relate to it. Whatever it is, it could be grainy, blown out, wrong light. But if it takes me somewhere, I enjoy it. That's it. That's how I judge it.
See, and I might judge something completely different.
That's just it, man. And that's the beauty in art. And I think motorcycles...
Well, that's why it makes it so hard for you guys to pick a winner.
For sure.
100%.
For sure.
You know?
Yeah.
That makes it way more difficult.
It is. And, you know.
Kudos to you for taking that on, man. I'm just building an all-American FXR.
No, I think what you're doing is way harder, but no, I mean, I really think I view motorcycles as art. Really, I do. You know, I love racing, and I think racing is a real way of judging motorcycles, right?
Can be, definitely, yeah.
You know what I mean? Obviously, there's a you know, rider skill involved with racing. You know what I mean?
Oh, I had no business being out there in the desert.
Oh, for sure. I mean, none of us normally do, or I mean, I pretend to be a motorcycle racer, but I just love it. I'm not good at it.
That's all that matters, though.
But I love it and I do it, and you know, and that's all that matters. You know, but I don't know, man.
It depends. Are you in it for the race, or are you in it for the joy?
Oh, the joy, 100%.
Then there you go. That's all that matters.
And I love I love everything from the start to end. Planning how to build the motorcycle, building the motorcycle, driving to the racetrack, being in the pits with the other racers, experiencing all those things with other racers and the crew and the team and everybody else that's there, just as much as I do lining up on the start line. Like the whole, it's the whole experience to me.
Oh, 100%. I think I had the most fun I've had with a motorcycle in recent years has been the dirt bike dyna build. And like putting that together. There we go, saying build again, right? You know, I chopped a frame. You know, like I feel like that was a little.
You can call yourself a builder now, right?
No, see, I still don't believe I'm a builder. I'm just a crazy dude with a cutoff wheel. So
yeah,
and a $99 freaking Harbor Freight welder. Don't look too close. Spray paint works wonders. You know, spray paint and a grinder will fucking buff that out. But you know, putting that bike together. That's a better way of wording it. Putting that bike together was some of the most fun because it was in between travels, out collecting parts for the FXR, between breaking down in Tennessee, and I started blogging a lot of the FXR journey just because I needed a long format. I'm not too keen on being in front of cameras. You can even see that in my posts. I do a lot of like first person stuff, so it feels like they're in the story as much as I am.
Yeah.
But I started doing blog posts and telling everything that's going on. But that truck breaking down all the time. And I was just, anyways. I picked up that dirt bike for $1,500.
Was it in dirt bike form before?
Fuck no, it was
just a dyna.
It was a just beautiful, beautiful FXD. Just happened to do a couple cartwheels on the freeway and get totaled out. So
before you bought it?
Before I bought it. Okay. Yeah.
So it was wrecked.
Yeah.
I mean, hence why you got it for so cheap.
I had a friend find the Facebook Marketplace ad for it that had been up, I think, 6 months prior. And it was beautiful. It was a good looking FXD, just classic, timeless, you know. I think it was like 10-inch T-bars on there, PM everything, Thunderstars. It was a good looking FXD. And when I got it, it didn't look like the pictures used to. You know, it was thrashed hard. Pretty sure there's a tweak in the frame on it. Can feel it a little bit when you're riding, but I knew what I was buying it for was to go put it through the paces out at the Biltwell 100, and I figured no better way to do this than on a wrecked bike that I didn't mind wrecking more.
Right.
And I was just like, if I'm going to go break this thing, it's already been broken once. Like, I won't be hurting too bad. I'm not going to take a $12,000 motorcycle, chop the frame, it's completely clean title, everything else, and now it's like, ooh, I messed up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if somebody wants to do a dirt bike build on a Harley, I would highly recommend getting like a beat up bike.
For sure. Yeah.
Because then you can go beat it up somewhere and you don't feel so bad.
That's what I did with my tracker. You're buying these cheap, blown up, wrecked Sportsters.
And then you just beat the piss out of them some more.
And you know, it doesn't hurt as bad when you smash them.
Or when you drop it, you don't think about it. I dropped that one the other day.
Really?
Yeah. I was getting it out of the box truck, and so I had taken it out for a spin about like 2-3 weeks ago. And I was just giving it the beans, having some fun. And now I don't have any front or rear brakes. So it's just, I was trying to clutch brake it out of the back of the box truck, which has got a pretty steep kind of angle to it. And I was coming down, and I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to lose it at some point. There's a certain arc in the truck where I usually, I need to put my feet down to grab something. And it just, I reached, and that bike being as tall as it is, I didn't get any footing, and I was just like, well, we'll just keep holding this in and keep rolling, and hopefully we'll be all right. And yeah, I set her down right there right in front of the house. I was like, oh well, just picked it up, started it, rode it into the garage. I was like, all right, cool, sounds good. Yeah. So that's another thing, is like, I'm out of the box truck now, just because I was just dumping so much money into it. And it was just like, okay, I need to make a conscious decision. Like, do I keep living in the box truck, or do I get something else that can tow, like a toy hauler or something, so that I can get more bikes to more locations and still keep traveling to pick up the parts? And so now I've kind of created a little bit of a home base in Phoenix kind of to launch from, but I'll spend most of the time still on the road. So
Nice.
But yeah, the Dyna's that one was a fun little, it was a, what did my friend call it? A side quest, you know? Like I went off on a little side quest and built this bike to go race in the Biltwell.
How was the Biltwell?
Oh, it was a blast. You know, it's organized chaos is really what it is. Like, you would think so it was my first time ever doing it, showing up to it. And like I got some buddies that were kind of more seasoned veterans to the Biltwell races. And those guys were like, hey, just come hang out with us, you know, we'll chill, we'll camp together, everything else. We got out there, and it was unbelievably windy the first day. Like, we're talking, the whole truck was just sitting there and shaking, and it was miserably just windy and cold. And so nobody was really doing much. We were all just kind of hunkered down, trying to stay out of the wind. So I had thrown my back out like 2 days prior, lifting, and so I was just like, oh no, like I could barely sit up. I was like, I don't even know if I'm gonna be able to ride this thing. So thank God for like Tiger Balm and Tylenol, that I popped enough of those to get me through the race. I think Steve from Speed King's taking me out in his side by side didn't help much, but I was definitely pretty sore afterwards. But yeah, just doing the race was it's for what it is. Doing it on a Harley is nuts. They had the guys out there that were doing it on the vintage bikes, like the 1930s and 20s Harleys, and that was cool to see.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm out there on a Dyna, and I'm like, oh yeah, whatever. Like, I'm looking at I'm like, dang, these guys are out here on vintage bikes, no suspension, no nothing. I'm like, that's intense. And it's just, I feel like everybody that was out there was just, there was people going for first. You know, there was definitely people just out there for first place, and that's what they're there for. And then there's a whole bunch of people that threw some shit together in their garage and came out there and just wanted to have a good time with their friends or like-minded crazy folks in the desert, you know? And I think that's the best thing about like race community. Yeah. Is you have those guys that are going to be, I'm going for number one. And then there's everybody out there just like, we're going to go out there and we might win, we might not. We're going to have a good time doing it regardless. That's why I asked you. I was just like, did you do it for the joy? Yeah, it's the joy. That's the most important part. For sure. So. You know, so much like when we're at some of the races and stuff, I mean, if there's a rider or a bike or a team that needs help or parts or tools or whatever, it's like, help each other out. We want to see them out there racing with us, you know? Yeah, I'd much rather take my time and help you. Like, if I have an extra clutch cable and I can toss that to you and that gets you back in the race, did I just add to my competition? Sure. That guy might beat you now, but oh well. But that's not what it's about. Yeah. It's like, if you're really about racing, you know, I saw a video not too long ago, and it was about Formula One back in, like, I think it was the 80s or something. And these two guys that were just rivals through and through. Well, one guy's truck, or one of his cars, breaks down or runs out of fuel on the final lap or something, and his rival picks him up and drives him into the pits. You know, it's just like, you can not like that guy but still want to help him, you know. And that's what I think, that's what racing is more about, is just like, it's the sportsmanship. It's for some people, it's just the joy of getting out there and competing and not caring if you win. It wasn't for me. For me, it was just a testament to be like, I got out there and I did it. Yeah. On a bike that I did for less than $5,000, which I thought that was important to show people, like, you don't need the $20,000, $30,000 bike. Could you hire a shop like Tucker Speed to put one together for you? Maybe, you know? But are you able to do it yourself if you have the capability of learning or the understanding of motorcycles' inner workings? Yeah, 100% you could. For sure. So it's fun. I wanted to show that, like, anybody could do it, not just the guys with the big paychecks to throw at them, you know? So.
Yeah. And it's weird. I think racing in general, no matter what form it is right now, it's dying off. I think, you know, worldwide, I think, in general, it's harder to do. It's expensive. A lot of people feel like they can't compete against teams with big money. They don't feel like they should go out there, and it has become. I mean, and obviously racing is about winning, right? That's what racing is, but it's more. I mean,
is it about winning, or is it just about showing up and competing?
Well, that's what I'm getting at.
You know, okay.
You know what I mean? I think
winning's important when there's a paycheck on the line. When you know.
Well, and I think the thing is, I think the hard part is a lot of people do it for joy, but it's expensive to do.
Man, tell me about expensive. All my habits are expensive, and I don't drink or smoke weed or nothing like that, man.
Right.
Like, all my habits are expensive, and I don't do anything like that.
Yeah.
So.
You know, if you want to race, say you want to race every weekend, you know, you have some local tracks, or you want to race, you know, a couple times a month, like that's going to take some time and money and commitment, and it's harder and harder for people to do that. Yeah, they could try and go out and be fast and get sponsors to help pay for that, but that means they have to be winning, and you know, and that's what competition is. But it just makes it very hard to do.
I sold a house to finance this project.
Right.
So,
I mean, that just says right there how expensive it is.
It's a ridiculously expensive habit. So,
and I think it's unfortunate, and I think that, you know, I was just at the BRL race a few weeks back, and they introduced a new class, the street class. Super Street is what they call it. And it's an entry-level class. It's a class that has rules on the bikes that you cannot do very many modifications, right? It's a street legal class, essentially.
oh, that's kind of cool.
And I think it's badass because it allows more people to get in there, be competitive, but not have to break the bank to build a full-on bagger racing league bike. You know, and one of my buddies, Chris Rivas, was there. Rivas is he has his own parts brand and sells parts and stuff like that. But he did a budget build, like kind of the same thing. Like it wasn't an American made thing. It was like, I'm going to buy a bike and do this for cheap. He bought a bike for $1,200 with a wrecked front end.
Heck yeah.
Sourced all of his crap like through Marketplace and used parts, eBay, whatever. Had built a bike to race in the class for $5,000.
That's pretty much.
And went out there and was competitive.
That's awesome.
So it's like, it's just cool. And it's just, we got to show people that like, you don't have to have big sponsors and a big race team and a big race truck and all this money to go racing. Just scrap together a few grand, go to the racetrack and have a good time.
Start a race club with your buddies, you know?
That's it.
Go see, like there's so much opportunity. Like the biggest thing people I think miss is you can start something new. You can go out, and as long as you show up and just keep trying and you don't let the disappointments like of, let's say, you know, nobody shows up, but you keep trying and you keep showing up and you keep showing up for yourself in those moments that you're disappointed that nobody showed up. As long as you keep working towards something, eventually you can build something. Does that mean every time it's going to work? No. That means you might have to change what you're doing or change the approach you're doing. But it's only a failure if you fail to learn or grow from it or make the adjustments that you need to make to be able to make something successful, especially if you're creating and taking a leap of faith on creating anything. When you opened up Tucker Speed, like, did you imagine all the hardships and everything that were coming with it?
Never in a million years.
I didn't realize all the hardships and stuff it was coming to come with building an all-American FXR, you know? And I think when you step into that unknown, I think a lot of people think it's just this endless fall, and you gotta, I've heard the quote before that you gotta learn how to fly on the way down. It's not a fall. It's a staircase, and you got to take those steps, and it's hard, and you're going to get tired, and it's going to be rough, but it's a staircase. You're not going to fall unless you sit down. Unless you sit down on that stair and you're like, this is the step I'm stopping at. If you keep going up that staircase, you will find yourself with an amazing view at the top. And there might not even be a top. You just get a better view every time you get.
And I would, you know, whatever it is you're trying to do, even if you failed, like whatever it is, say it's a business, you open a business and say the business fails. You're not worse off for it. How much did you learn through the process? So how much better are you now, even though you may have financially failed or whatever it might be? How much better off are you as a person for going through the process, learning the things you learned? Now, if you do it again, you know all the things not to do. So you still learn. You still got better, right?
The only guaranteed failure is never starting.
Sure. 100%.
That's it. It's just, if you don't begin, you will never know. So you have automatically failed. Mm-hmm. But again, if you take an opportunity to fail, to learn, to grow, it's never really a failure.
Sure.
It might.
It's a setback, right? It's not a failure.
No, it's not even a setback.
You don't
it might
think
be
so?
setting you right.
Maybe.
We could talk about something being a setback, or maybe it's just a pivot. It's a change of direction.
Sure.
Maybe it's the universe saying, "Hey, I didn't mean do that. I meant do it like that." It's just a push in the other direction.
Sure.
And I think if you change your mindset on things, like, you become an unstoppable force in pursuing what it is you want ruthlessly and endlessly. And I'm not saying by any means to do that at the expense of others, to be rude, to be malice, to be any kind of, put more good into the world than like evil, and just be that and be yourself. And dude, you can go anywhere.
For sure. It's pretty basic, right? Don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal. Like, just
simple.
Just, kind of some basic rules,
It's basic. But, in the society we live in today, there's a lot of people just trying to get ahead by cheating others. And in the end, it never works out. Those guys always,
For sure.
like, at the end of it all, those guys will be held accountable. And talking about accountability, integrity, stuff like that goes back into the parts,
For sure. Which leads me,
I'm the one guy poking in the 100,000 sales. I'm the one dude asking the questions and getting hung up on or told to go fuck himself, right? But that's fine with me, because I know eventually there will be some level of accountability in this industry where people are asking the right questions. And when people say something, they mean it.
Sure. Which leads me into the question, we were talking earlier, or messaging earlier, that you had some stuff that you wanted to talk about.
That was a lot. We covered quite a bit of it.
We covered most of it. I mean, we talked a lot about the industry and being honest and being upfront.
I could go down the laundry list and just start name dropping right now, but that's not going to solve any problems.
That goes back to that, like, trying to shine light on yourself by putting, taking the light or talking bad about this company or this person.
It does nothing.
Doesn't do you any good, right?
They will continue to do what they're doing, and it won't matter, blah, 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 blah. Other people need to start asking the questions for themselves. I'm one guy asking the question right now.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people paying attention to the answers that I'm getting. And I think that's an important thing.
For sure.
People are starting to look a little differently at what it means to be made in America, or even more so, what products they're choosing, because maybe they don't really stand behind what that person represents or how that person treats people. There's been parts that are made in America that I've gotten cold shoulders after trying to approach them a few times and talk to them and being super friendly, and I want their parts and I'm willing to pay for. I'm like, I haven't gotten any discounts on this. I don't have any sponsors. It's all out of my own pocket to buy these parts to put on this bike. And even then, there's some people that are just like, man, whatever, and I don't ever approach anybody and be like, I'm Shooksoda, you need to pay attention to me. I don't give a fuck. Nobody cares who the fuck I am. I don't care who the fuck I am in most of the times, like, I'm just Austin at the end of the day. That's all I am. And I'm not trying to be anything beyond just being myself. But it's just like how you treat people matters too. And if your customer service is absolute dog crap, or I pay you for a part and 14 months later I still haven't seen it or heard about it, and I have to remind you to, like, hey, where are you with this? And all you get is excuses every time. Like, yeah, it's going to be tough for me to want to do business with you. It's going to be really, really tough for me to encourage other people to do business with you.
Well, I think on that point, in my experience, if I want to buy a product from you and it's going to take 14 months to get it to me, just tell me that.
Tell me it.
Just say, hey, man, probably going to be 14, 15 months.
Don't have it in stock on the website.
Don't have it here today. Don't tell me, oh, yeah, I'll get that shipped out next month. And then play this game for 14 months. Just tell me up front, 14 months.
Be like, it's going to be a year.
upfront.
And I'd be like,
whatever.
cool.
Yeah.
Either
Just
A,
be up front.
I buy it because I still want it, or B, I go find something else because it's more convenient, or
Yeah.
it's more readily available
Yeah.
because I'm impatient, or because I have a project that needs to be finished on a certain timeline. And like,
But the game of like saying, "Oh yeah, I'll get that shipped out in a couple of weeks," and taking your money and then dragging you out, for
robbing
14
Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah,
and
like
jumping through all these hoops. Yeah. And
there's no way I want to do business with that person again.
And it's amazing just by being upfront, honest about it, and being like, right now I'm a little behind, or I'm having difficulties finding X, Y, and Z. It's going to be, 14 months. If you buy it today, it'll be 14 months from now. We'll get you your stuff.
Yeah.
Boom. All right, cool.
Easy. And if 14 comes and you still don't have it, shoot us an email.
Yeah.
Hey man, I told you 14 months.
But that's not how
Still
it's not.
That's so rare. In our situation where we're kind of like an online retailer and we're selling a lot of these other brands' products, we're kind of the middleman.
You're the middleman, yeah.
And so what we're communicating to our customer is what they're communicating to us.
you guys,
if they're bullshitting us, we're essentially bullshitting our customer, and then my integrity or our name is questioned.
It's a trickle down.
It's so hard.
Because if that first guy if he was honest about what he was doing or how he was going about it, transparent about it, be like, hey, you're going to buy these, I'm going to buy the stuff, we're going to make it happen. I understand how the business works. I'm not dumb, But if he was just super honest about that, it'd be like, it's going to be about 14 months. I'm a little backed up on this stuff. And in 14 months, you don't got it, like you said, just shoot us an email. We'll figure that out, right? If he was just super honest about that, you can then tell your customer, if you purchase this, there is going to be a 14-month lead time.
Yeah.
Don't contact us about this because in between now and then, we are still waiting for it as well, And I think that just starts at the base is like,
Sure.
Are they being honest to you, being a retailer for them is what they're telling you honest. So then you can then be honest to your customers. And if your integrity is breached because of their integrity not adding up, then now the customer has lost faith in not only you, but now the product that they purchased. So that's two businesses down because one person couldn't keep their integrity.
Right.
Now, again, my expectations of others versus what I expect of myself are completely different things.
Sure. But
That's why I said just a little bit of honesty would be nice.
for sure.
So.
Yeah. And it's so rare. Unfortunately, I feel like it's so rare anymore in my experience. You know what I mean? We sell a lot of parts. We sell a ton of parts.
Well,
And we deal with a lot of companies and a lot of brands. And I don't want to say maybe rare is the wrong word. It's not uncommon to be in that situation where a company is said one thing and I get it. Like maybe they say 14 months and 14 months comes and there's still a material shortage or whatever it is they're dealing with. I don't know.
Or maybe they say 14 months and they get it to you in 10 and now you think they're the best thing ever.
Great.
Wow. What a concept, right?
Yeah.
If you know your lead time's if you know your lead time was 10 months to get something done and I told you 14 and you got it at 10, how much
think you're a rock star,
You would
dude.
think we are amazing, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think
you'd
you're
be
a rock
more
star.
likely to buy from us again. You would be more likely to recommend us to everybody.
Every time.
Wow.
Because
It's wild, right? Like, I'm not crazy thinking this way, right?
in our situation, by you being a rock star to me, now you just
now
made me a rock star to my customer.
it's amazing how that works. If the
made two rock stars.
integrity fails, now both of your integrities fails. If one of you's a rock star because you are all of a sudden delivering ahead of time, but you still have that cushion, that 4 months to fall back when you're not being a total rock star, like now your customer is happy regardless because they're either getting it at the 14 months or they're getting it early, and now they think you're awesome because you got a hold of it before like it was supposed to be due, and then that guy is awesome because he got it before he told you he was going to get it.
Exactly.
And now everybody's happy.
But it's hard. I mean, and I think on the flip
But
side of
you
it,
got to have somebody that's willing to wait 14 months.
for sure,
And that's a harder thing to find, I think.
they're harder to find, but they're out there.
They're me's.
They're out there. There's people willing to wait for quality.
And I think that's what it is profits have been prioritized over products. And I don't knock it. I understand business.
Business is business,
I have
right?
a master's degree in business. I've owned businesses. I've sold businesses. I know how businesses work. Profit is a priority.
What else is it about?
Right now, I mean, it comes down to where am I going to spend my money and what am I going to spend my money on? Businesses right now are focused on survival, especially in the economic turndown that we're currently having. You can look at the 2006, 7, 8 is where we lost a shitload of manufacturers of American parts for motorcycles. I can trace it all the way back to the 2008 crash. That is when we lost probably 100 manufacturers overnight, was the 08. The ones that survived barely did or went underground until they were able to resurface, you know? And that's like a hard point in this project is like I've gone all the way back to the 08s where it's just like we lose these guys. And like I'm talking like I can't even find articles online about them anymore. Like I'm going through old Easy Rider magazines or Hot Bike magazines or whatever it is. Like I'm going back and looking through like hard paper documents trying to find these companies because they don't exist anymore. So then I can try and find those parts either NOS or used or whatever. And that was like an approach I was taking as well to finding parts for this thing to keep it all American. It's like the research, man. I've done probably, I don't even know, thousands of hours of research.
Kind of coming back to the FXR.
Not thousands. How many hours are in a year?
Oh boy, you're looking at the wrong.
24 times 365. So that's a lot.
All I know is there's 2,080 work hours in a year.
Okay.
Like if you worked a 40-hour week
I've
for a
done-
year, it's 2,080.
Definitely, I've been on the phone or researching almost every single day for at least 5 to 6 hours,
Full-time
including
job.
weekends. Yeah, I've worked more on the FXR project doing research than I actually have like my old job. So, yeah.
I coming back to the FXR, I just have a question on like when you're done with the project. Done.
Oh, I'm gonna light it on fire. No.
What kind of value are you going to put on it? How do you value it? What are you going to do with it?
Oh, my plan afterwards is just to ride the ever living piss out of it. I want to go put 20,000 miles in 3 months on it. Just cause.
Just go do that Triple Crown then. Would that be one of your goals then?
No, the ride I'm planning is a little bit bigger. It's like FXR Infinity sign. So that's more of what I'm thinking. So it's even bigger than all the other
than the
rides.
Triple Crown?
Yeah, it's even more riding. It's just take an infinity sign and lay it down on the United States map and then go do that. It's pretty much FXR forever, baby.
Will you put a value on it? Will you put a dollar amount on it?
Fuck no. I'll have an Excel spreadsheet that tells you exactly a parts breakdown at the time of purchase, but again,
But that's just hard. That's just part cost.
that's just documentation on part cost. That doesn't include how much it cost me to put the truck together. That doesn't cost how much fuel I spent to get around. That doesn't include buying a whole nother truck to get around the country. That doesn't include,
What about your time? How much time?
how do I value that,
Well, that's just what I'm asking.
That's what I would say. Like it's $100,000 FXR, regardless of how you split it up.
You're going to sell it?
Fuck no. No, this
What
is
if I gave you $100,000 for it?
go stuff yourself, Tony. No, I want, and I've been very, very, very choosy on the display of this bike, like how it looks visually. And I have I've spent way too much time looking at like color patches and stuff like that to figure out exactly how I wanted this bike to look. And I didn't want somebody to just look at it and be like, oh, that bike was built between, 2000 and 2004 or whatever, or like, oh, that one's a 2020 bike. You can tell by the paint job, and like whatever was flashy then. And I want you to look at this bike and be like, that thing is a timeless FXR. Like there is no questioning it. Like that thing just looks.
Is there a color palette out there that exists that cannot be like time stamped?
Black, every Harley black, man. No, I'm just kidding. No,
Let's talk about that today.
I think it's more so about display. I think
Yeah.
it's how all of it goes together. I mean, it comes down to the parts and how they translate into the physical and how people interpret them visually. Is like, does their paint match up with that and like everything else like that? Like, you can do a timeless paint job, and I think a lot of the times we see those often recycled.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just trying to think in my head of a timeless.
I got one that pops directly into my head.
What is it?
It's like the old Willie's flamed lowrider. He's got the orange flames on the black bike.
Yeah, we just had that. That was in here.
That's like a timeless kind of bike to me.
Like traditional flames,
Just traditional
orange,
yep,
white.
on black. Yep. See, like that to me is like traditional hot rod style.
But that's just it.
That's what
To me, it's traditionalist, and it's like, to me, it speaks to like 30s, 40s.
the older.
So it gets time stamped to me. That's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Like,
But if you saw one on a newer ride, would you think, "Wow, that looks good"?
oh yeah,
Exactly. So it becomes a timeless
so
kind of.
timeless is not necessarily like it can't be dated. It's more it never goes out of style.
There you go. That's probably a better way of putting it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can see that, because timeless to me means that like I can look at it and be like, I don't know what decade that paint scheme comes from. Where like, you know, like my buddy Dave, he's got a bike that's going to be in the Invited Bike Show. He's got a bagger that he painted, and it is 90s mini truck paint, 100% neon, you know, like stripes. Like,
Hurts to look at, but still cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like
but
it.
it's 100% dateable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's cool. Don't get me wrong, but it's dateable. And to me, and maybe it goes back to how we view art. Every time I see a paint scheme, it takes me to a decade. You know what I mean?
See, I look at parts and think that. Like I look at
For sure.
I look at what parts are on there. With paint, I've seen all kinds of different paint schemes on all different ages of bikes, and I think there are certain ones that you could look at and you could be like, "Ooh, that one was definitely during the '90s. That was like some tribal style.
Yeah.
Like that everybody had the Godsmack circle on their tummy, you know, like you know what I'm talking about.
For real.
And like you can date those.
How'd you know it was on my stomach?
That was a lucky guess, man. But like you could see what came into what came into fashion and what went out.
Yeah.
Right. And there are some things that just stand the test of time and are just still cool.
Agreed. I agree. And I would say that black with like the kind of traditional flame.
That's not the color scheme I'm going with, but
Come on, man. It's sick, dude.
you guys got to wait.
But-
Maybe July 4th there might be a bike post about something. I don't know.
A little teaser.
See? We'll see
I
if
like
they
it.
listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
They'll know that.
For sure. But yeah, I think timeless, or just does it ever go out of style? And
It's always cool.
There's stuff that just never is not cool. I'm a sucker for like some of the factory like 80s paint schemes from Harley.
Those are some of my favorites.
They're some of the best. They're some of the best looking. I think, you know, Willie G was in charge of styling. Like he had a good eye for style. I'll give him that.
And I think that's like, will everybody look at this and be like, wow, that thing is amazing? No, but I look at it and I think, in my head, when I think about just the coolest Harley, it's not even my own, right? It goes back to like the dude I saw when I was like 12 years old, looking at him ride by, and I was like, that was the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Right. But it strikes an emotion, right?
But again, there we go. It goes back to that, how we feel about art. And
Yeah.
when we look at something, what do we think, or what memory do we have of it? You know, most of us get into motorcycles because of someone else. Because one of our friends is like, man, you got to come. It's so exciting. Or you look at a family member, and when you think about the motorcycle, you think about them, and they were always passionate about it. So then you developed a small passion for it, or a larger passion, and, you know, whatever that might look like. But I still remember the first time grabbing throttle, you know, hanging out at my family friend's house on a little pit bike, and I almost fucking died. But it was the time of my life. I was cheesing from ear to ear, and the last time I had a grin on my face that big was riding the dirt bike Dyna in the Biltwell 100, and I didn't stop smiling the entire race. And
That's
so like
cool.
that was bringing me back to a real childhood like sense of curiosity or excitement.
That's another beauty in motorcycling, right? Is that they can take you back to that 5-year-old you or whatever.
How many of us put playing cards in our bike tires so we could hear it sound like a motorcycle,
Yeah.
you know?
And, you know, what else do you do in life that takes you back to that feeling? Like, what other thing that you do besides motorcycling can do that? Like for me, and maybe that's just us motorcyclists that do, and maybe that's what makes us motorcyclists, right? Is that when we go on, you ride a Dyna out through the desert and you feel like a 10-year-old kid twisting the throttle for the first time again. And you have that feeling of just being a kid. You have no care in the world other than twisting the throttle, catching air, whatever it is, crashing. You don't care. You're just having fun.
You just get back up. You just bounce back.
And there's no other care in the world. Like, and there's there's not anything else for me personally that does that for me.
Well, I think for us it's motorcycles. For somebody else, it's going fishing. For somebody else, it's this. For somebody else, it's that.
Yeah.
For some people, it might be just going and reading a book next to the water. And that takes them back to a time when their mom used to take them next to the little river around the corner from the house, and they would sit there and you'd run around with a stick, but mom would sit there reading her book so she could have a little bit of peace and quiet while you were off trampling around with the mud and the dirt and the worms, just having fun.
And maybe that's what makes us motorcyclists, right?
I think our passion for bikes and our memories that we attach to these machines is half of what becomes why we get so excited about motorcycles. Is we attach those emotions, those memories. Like, I remember I talked to Jace about this, was like, you never remember the best day ever on a motorcycle. You always remember the fucking worst of it all, right? The absolute miserable days where it's raining, where you get a flat tire, where somebody's broken down. Like, those are the stories we remember. And why? And I think it's because of the emotion that's ingrained into it. Like the frustration, the heartbreak, the, whatever feelings you're feeling in that moment, make it a memory. And we look back and laugh and smile and be like, we got past that. That wasn't a big deal.
Right.
We were just so frustrated in that moment, but it didn't really matter.
Yeah.
Or the one time you're trying to get a bolt out and you're just going, and you're like, what am I doing wrong? And like, it was the smallest thing. And when you step away and you come back and you chuckle because of how simple it really was and how much of it, in the grand scheme of it all, it didn't really make any dent in the joy that you were still having.
Right.
I have smiled more times getting hailed on, rained on, riding through dust storms than just going on the perfect day ride, where there's the sun shining, there's nothing wrong, there's no traffic. Like, I couldn't tell you the last time I did one of those. I can't remember
the last time you heard a story about that day.
Exactly.
From somebody else. Like, you ever heard that story of like, oh yeah, we went on a ride and everything was perfect. The weather was perfect. Like, who tells that story?
Nobody.
Yeah.
Maybe that guy over there. Maybe Levi.
Maybe Levi.
Yeah. Levi's got a lot of perfect ones on his videos.
He's just a perfect dude. Oh man, this has been a good podcast, bro.
No, I'm glad I could make it out here for the show. And
you're here for the Twobit show.
The first ever.
First ever.
And it's just open to the public. You guys just come on out, have some fun.
Dude, it's going to be, it's been a lot of work and a lot of stress, but dude, it's going to be awesome. I'm super stoked that you're here to be part of it.
Dude, heck yeah, man.
It means a lot that, that we have kind of this reach and we've made enough of kind of an impression on people to want to come out to this show, dude. That it just means a lot to me.
I know some people traveling a good many miles. I came almost 800, and I know another guy going about 1,000.
Yeah, and that's I don't know, dude. Like, this show is something bigger than Tony Tucker. It's bigger than Tucker Speed. It's almost Levi big.
But that's how you feel about your show right now is how I feel about this FXR project and the message that it holds.
And that's a beautiful thing.
You're trying to bring people together. I'm trying to make people think.
And both things are important, right?
And we're both trying to make people appreciate things, because you're making them think about art and appreciate art. I'm making them think about
made in the USA.
What they're spending
buying.
the money on.
Sure.
What they are willing to call quality. So.
And that's a big question in today's world.
Well,
what is quality? And you'll never get a straight answer.
I can give you my definition, but your definition will be different. Your definition will be different.
Sure. Yeah. Well, dude, I'm super stoked that you're here this weekend.
We're gonna have such a good time.
We're gonna have a good time. All day Friday. I hope that you stick around for Saturday. We're just gonna be hanging out here in the shop all day Saturday. So yeah, it's going to be a good time. Thanks for coming on this podcast. I really appreciate your time, dude.
We'll have to do it again when I'm on the tour with the FXR.
Dude, for sure. I want to know what's going on with it.
I'll come through town.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Right on, dude. Thank you for your time.
Thank you guys so much.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Yep.